So this is going to be our agenda for tonight. So again, it's going to be that 10,000 foot view. First, I'm going to start off with what is Bitcoin? How do I secure my Bitcoin? So once you purchase it, what do I do with it? And what is Bitcoin mining? Those are the three main big ones. So myself, I'm going to be talking through the first section. Zach, who was just up there in the purple shirt, he's going to be going through how do you secure Bitcoin. And Neil, who's in the back over there, is going to be talking a little bit more about Bitcoin mining. All right? All right. So the first one here. So where did Bitcoin come from? So Bitcoin's kind of funny. The origins of Bitcoin are something that has been in the works for a very long time. Pretty much ever since there's been a computer scientist, there's been somebody that's been trying to figure out how can I get money digitized, right? So there was a group back, well before 2009 called the cypherpunks. So the cypherpunks were these people, a group of those computer scientists that were really trying to figure out how they can get a digital money. One of those people was somebody named Satoshi Nakamoto. The funny thing about Satoshi is nobody really knows who he is. So Satoshi is a synonym, I'm sorry, not a synonym, but a pseudonym, thank you. It's a pseudonym for a person or a group of people that found how to make Bitcoin work. So there were a lot of other digital currencies in the past that people created, but they ran into some different problems that made it good money. We're not going to get too deep into the weeds, but I just want to say that. There's some things like the double spend problem, which they figured out. And one of the best things, and we'll get a little bit more into the network here when we start talking about this, but Satoshi was able to find out how can we issue Bitcoin in a way that makes it fair and equitable to everybody, and also make it more secure, which we'll talk about. All right, so nobody really knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. There's been lots of speculation on who those people are. There's kind of a group of people that they keep floating around saying this person is Satoshi, this person is Satoshi, but nobody really knows. So we don't know if Satoshi is still alive or not. All that we know is that about a year after he created Bitcoin, or they created Bitcoin, whomever they are, he did call himself he on the forum, so we'll call him he. He just kind of disappeared. He said, I'm moved on to some other projects. Have a good day. And the million Bitcoin that he mined in that time have never moved. So we don't know if he's still alive or not. So that's a little bit about Satoshi. But we'll talk a little bit more about Satoshi and kind of the stuff that he came up with. But like I said, Bitcoin was the end result of the decades of computer scientists trying to figure out this digitized money. Though it was not the first, this is the most successful. Of course, we all know about other cryptocurrencies, which we affectionately call shitcoins here. But we are a Bitcoin-only organization, so we only ever talk about Bitcoin. All right, but any main questions off of this slide before I move on? Just want to make sure. Potentially. Or that just means that somebody cracked his wallet and hacked into it and was able to move it, which is very unlikely. Yeah, we are going to be talking about quantum resistance in our... Thank you, Tatum. Thank you for keeping me in check. Yeah, but there's lots to talk about there for sure. All right, so some of the key aspects of Bitcoin protocol, and Neil, thanks for pointing this out here. I just got this graphic off of the web, and we'll talk about the halving here in just a second, but we're actually at the next halving here, so we're actually the next line down. But Bitcoin has a hard cap of 21 million coins. So that's what makes it something that's completely different than what we're used to in our fiat world with the US dollar, right? We all know that since like 2020, they've printed anywhere from like 40 to 45% of any money that's ever existed has been printed in the last 5 years. That's ridiculous. That's diluting all of us from our savings. So all that money that everybody worked for prior to 2020 is now worth that much less because they were printing all of that. And that's going to continue to happen, right? We all have seen the news articles about how our national debt keeps increasing. I think we're, what, 36 trillion now? And it just keeps going up and up and up and up. This is going to keep happening. So the value of the dollar is going down. And unfortunately, for the fiat world, for those of you, or for those people that are not in this room right now, they don't even know it, right? But we do. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. So Bitcoin has that hard cap of 21 million coins. Those new coins are issued at a set schedule. So at the year 21, 2036, it has the next halving, this bottom line that's here. 4 years after that is when the last Bitcoin will be mined. We'll talk about mining here in just a little bit too. But that issuance schedule means that when Bitcoin first started, when you mined a Bitcoin or when you mined a block, you guys know blocks? If not, well, it's okay, we'll talk about blocks too. But we have these really sophisticated computers that are trying to figure out these immense math problems. Once they figure that out, then they get a block reward, meaning that they found the answer to the question. And when they do that, they get 50 Bitcoin as a reward, okay? So that was back in 2009 when Satoshi created it. We were at that first block reward of the Genesis halving. So every 4 years, that issuance schedule goes down. So it actually gets harder every 4 years for somebody to mine Bitcoin. All right, that's you can kind of look at this issuance schedule. And that's how the 21 million coins are going to be divvied up, because every 10 minutes, a new block is found on average. We're not going to get too deep into the network on the network aspects of that, but just know that as well. Yep.
Question, does everyone know what fiat is? You've used the term fiat.
Sure.
And I learned the hard way that not everyone knows what that means. I just want to make sure, does everyone know what that means? Okay, so fiat is literally the term, you'll hear us use it all the time, which basically literally means by decree. And what it also means for Bitcoiners is money that's backed by nothing. It's because the government says this is our money. And there are 160 or 70 countries that say this is your money, but they use the term fiat.
Yeah.
Just to know that. So the US dollar is fiat. So is the euro, so is the yen, so is every other currency on the planet.
Yeah, so it's pretty much any state-issued currency that's out there. All right. Any other main questions off of this one you guys want to tackle? Again, I'm trying to keep this as high level as I can. I know that in the Q&A we can get as deep as you guys want to go. Okay? So the cool thing about Bitcoin is that there is nobody that actually owns the network, right? There's no shareholders, there's no person there's no CEO or any of that kind of stuff. The network itself is what keeps Bitcoin secure. So that's one of the main reasons why people like Bitcoin, because of its security. So you see here that it says the Bitcoin network consists of thousands of computers that are running the Bitcoin time chain. You might hear blockchain or time chain, just know that those are interchangeable. I like the term time chain because in Bitcoin it's actually every 10 minutes that new block is found, so we call it a time chain. Okay. And that network, it consists of a bunch of nodes. So if anybody in here knows anything about computer science and kind of networking within those, if every single one of us had a computer, think of like the internet, right? If you have a computer that hooks up to a given internet, we're all part of that network, and each one of our computers is a node that attaches to that network, if that makes sense, okay? In Bitcoin, the nodes are what helps to decentralize the information that's available on the network. To kind of put that in terms that you might understand, if, let's say Bitcoin was running off of one computer and that computer went down, what would happen? That's a scary thing, right? If that one computer went down, nobody could transact with Bitcoin until it comes back up, right? That's a scary proposition. But what this does is that the network, when you download the Bitcoin blockchain on your node, you now are connected to all the other nodes that are within that network itself. And right now there's what, 15,000, 20,000 computers on the node, something like that? I'm sorry, in the network. So that means that if 10 go down, we still have the other 19,000 and whatever there to back us up. So the information is still there. And all that those guys do is that they take and hold a complete ledger of all the Bitcoin transactions that have ever existed since the very first day of Bitcoin. Right? So the nodes are what makes everybody, they're the ones that enforce the rules. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Okay. Another integral part of the network are the miners, right? So the miners are the ones that actually are contributing compute power and electricity to try to solve the problem, to be able to get the Bitcoin reward every 10 minutes, okay? Today, they use these super sophisticated computers that are industrial machines. That's all they do is they try to solve this particular problem. There's no Windows running on it. There's no Microsoft Word or any of that kind of stuff. This is all they do. It's every millisecond they're trying to figure out what this answer is to the question to be able to mine the block. Back in the day, you used to be able to do it on your laptop. So like at that Genesis block we were talking about in 2009, everybody used to be able to just run the blockchain run a miner software on your computer, and you can mine 50 Bitcoin right off of your laptop. Those days, unfortunately, are gone. That would have been nice, right? So there's been a lot of technology that has happened from then till now. Then it went from kind of your personal computer, then it went up to GPUs, servers, and now we're at the ASICs. And Neil, keep me honest, when was the first ASIC? 2013, something like that? Yeah, so 2013 was when the first specialized machine was created. What's that? Avalon? But now they just keep getting better and better. So really now it's the same machine over and over again, but every year or 2 years they come out with new chips and new processes to make them more efficiently, make them more efficient so that you can actually mine more Bitcoin per miner. All right. So one thing I'll talk about on here is a little bit around consensus. So that's the nice thing about this network is that it actually deters people from being able to cheat the network itself. So consensus, as we use it in our daily lives, right? It's the same word here, meaning that all the nodes have to agree that this block that was found was true, so that this computer or this miner puts out the guess to the answer. That answer is then propagated to all the nodes. The nodes say thumbs up, and then that's why the person gets the reward. So if some miner tries to cheat it, it's going to send it to a node. Maybe they run a node, and that node says, yes, this block is valid. But then it propagates to the other nodes. Those other nodes are going to say, wait a second, this one isn't valid. So then the network rejects it. But in the meantime, all the machines are still running, right? So if it does get rejected, then the next one that actually finds the true answer is the one that gets the block reward. Okay. And like I said a little bit ago, the miners work on proof of work. So again, they're contributing compute power and electricity use to be able to mine the Bitcoin. You'll hear some other cryptocurrencies out there use things called proof of stake, which we're not going to get into here tonight. But proof of work just means that you actually have to have skin in the game to be able to mine the Bitcoin. So you actually have to provide something to the network to be able to get the reward. Right? I know there's a lot of me talking and there's a lot of people just staring up here. I want to make sure any questions on anything we've talked about? Okay. One of the best things about Bitcoin is for everyone. So it has open rules. So just like basketball does or your favorite board game, there's rules that you have to follow to be able to participate. As long as you follow the rules, you're able to participate. If you don't follow the rules, then you can't participate. All right? And Bitcoin's a protocol, right? So again, it's not managed by any one person. It's actually managed by software. All right? So that's one good thing to know about it. There's constraints on how it works, and everybody agrees to the same rules. Like I said, just like your favorite sports team, or I'm sorry, your favorite sport, or the board game that you like to play. It's also open source. This is one of the biggest things about Bitcoin that I think, that I really like, is that if you're a computer scientist and you want to look at the code that's behind the Bitcoin network, you can do so. If you find something malicious, you can submit that to the team to have them fix it. There is a team of core developers that actually maintain the network, but they don't necessarily answer on what Bitcoin does, if that makes sense. They actually have a program that you can submit new aspects of Bitcoin that you would like to see to their team. They kind of review it, and then they send it out to everybody. So all the miners all vote on if this is a good idea for them to do that or not. If enough percentage of the miners say it's good, then that feature gets added into Bitcoin. Okay. The last one here, Bitcoin is permissionless. So as long as you have the will to use it and the technology to access the network, you can freely participate. So there's no third party that says yes or no. So there's no credit checks. There's no bank that says you can or can't use it. Well, I guess there is some banks that say you can or can't use it, so I'll take that back. But there's no other third party that's there. Meaning that as long as you have some Bitcoin and your friend has Bitcoin, if you want to send them Bitcoin or they want to send you Bitcoin, you can do that. There's no third party that happens in between. If you guys think about your credit card transaction, right? You have a credit card or a debit card, that has to jump through like 5 different things for it to even get back to your other person, right? And it's not real time either, right? It'll go to the vendor itself, they have their credit card machine, then it'll go to their holding house, and then it goes to the bank, and then the other holding house, and all the way back through. And everything's batched, right? So that even though it'll show in your bank account or in your friend's bank account that you sent them $100, it may be a day or 3 days or 5 days for that to actually happen, right? But Bitcoin is faster than that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. All right, my last slide here I'll talk to you guys about. So if you do decide that you want to buy Bitcoin, there's 2 main places where you can do that. Exchanges, so think of like a company that's out there, it's a website or an app where you add in some personal information, which we call Know Your Customer or KYC. That's used a lot in the banking field as well. You create an account with them, and then you can purchase the Bitcoin by attaching your banking information. So then you now have your debit card attached to that specific app. At any day, you can then go in and buy Bitcoin. Now, if you have an app on your phone, that Bitcoin is now on the app on your phone, or at least it says that you have that on there, and Zach will talk a little bit more about where that actual Bitcoin is here in just a minute. The second one is peers, friends, trusted people. So that's nice is that if you don't want to go to the exchange, you can actually do peer-to-peer with your friends and family instead of doing it that way. So if you already have a hardware wallet, which again we'll talk about here in a little bit, or a software wallet, like an app on your phone, you can purchase the Bitcoin from peers without having to use any kind of exchange. So anybody in here, we'll talk about the Lightning Network probably just a little bit. But Lightning Network is a layer above the Bitcoin network, which is more peer-to-peer. It's instant payments back and forth between you and your friends. That's how you can think of that. Okay. Just know that there's a lot more technology than just the regular base layer of Bitcoin that's out there that you can use. And lastly, this one is more private solution than using an exchange. So if you are a privacy-minded person, this is a better way to send Bitcoin back and forth through the network as well. I guess that's true. You can also mine it. I didn't put that in here because I knew Neil was probably going to talk about that, but. All right, guys, what other questions? They don't. We don't talk about stable coins. I know, you're asking the good question. Coinbase. Yeah. But we can once we get into the Q&A, we can talk about those as well. Cool. All right, so again, we wanted to keep this, it was hard for me to go through this because there's so much that I want to tell everybody that's here, but keeping at that 10,000 foot view for you guys, it's hard for us to do, especially Bitcoiners. And if you talk to any Bitcoiner that's in here, if you talk to them for 10 minutes, all of a sudden, you're going to be talking about all sorts of things that you never thought you'd ever talk about. So, but awesome. I'm going to pull Zach up here. Zach, you want to go through wallets with us? Okay. Thank you, guys.
And I would just have one comment related to what you've done. Great job. You don't actually, do you know how your computer works?
All right, Mark's gonna do a moon wallet demonstration. Well, I really don't need to do the mic, but I'm just doing the mic more for the recording, so maybe I'll do it like right here somewhere. I'm Zach. It feels weird talking to the mic. It feels more natural without it, but I'm Zach, one of the co-founders here, as Joel endearingly put. This is Eric and I and several people's hard sweat, blood, tears. All of those are true. Why do we do this crazy thing at the space? Because we freaking love Bitcoin. Why do we love Bitcoin? Because it's changed our lives in a positive way. None of us would do it if it wasn't for that. There's been so many businesses that have been started out of here. And as Joel mentioned, we've only been open since October. So that's like 8-9 months. There have been so many lifelong friendships. I consider every single person on the board of directors that we founded with a lifelong friend. There's no way you go through that much shit together and don't become lifelong friends. if you succeeded, which I think this having you all here tonight is an amazing indication of that. So I did a specific presentation on wallets. It was 3 hours last quarter. So if you need more of this, need more Zach talking about wallets in your veins, it's on our YouTube, youtube.com/@spacedenver. And that has all of our presentations that we record here. So we do have an education foundation that we run, and our focus is on that one thing, education. And so I hope this is helpful. I lead sales at Casa. I've been there about 4.5 years. Before that, I was a high net worth financial planner. One of my clients, I was a stock options strategist, and I helped our concentrated clients divest their concentrated stock positions. In this case, this guy was an early employee at Tesla. Tesla, you may have heard, that's a pretty good stock. And so when this guy said, I want to sell $10 million of it and I want to do it all right now, I naturally was like, well, wait, why? That doesn't seem so smart. He says, because I'm going all in Bitcoin, baby. And this was in 2019. And he was right. 4 months later, March of 2020 happened, and I said, holy shit, that guy that sold all his Tesla stock and got into Bitcoin, he was right, because they printed all this money. But the thing is, there's a lot of things you'll hear about Bitcoin. Not all of it is good information. No shit coins here, as Joel said, and I think that's very important. You've got to understand Bitcoin before you understand anything else, because you have to understand where the rest of it came from. But you don't necessarily have to understand every aspect of Bitcoin in order for it to help you meaningfully in your life. You'll learn that just hanging around the space. It's more than life than just money. But we're talking about money tonight, and in this case, how do you secure the world's best money? So Casa, what we do we are a wallet. So I think I'm fairly qualified to do this. We've helped thousands and thousands of people with very large to very, very small wallets secure their Bitcoin. All shapes and sizes, individuals, businesses, nonprofits. We here at the Space are Casa customers. We just haven't finished getting signed up yet, so we'll do that. Where I want to go with this first is where Mark left us off, or where Joel left us off, which is where is the Bitcoin and what is a wallet? So a Bitcoin, how many people have a Bitcoin wallet? Actually, I'd love to get just an indication to know who I'm talking to. How many people have sent Bitcoin before?
Nice try, man.
Yeah. This is all, you've seen my last presentation. It's all, no one should ever raise their hands because now you're all targets, but only I'm the one getting recorded, not the hands, so you're safe. So a common misnomer is that a Bitcoin wallet holds Bitcoin, right? Like, what is your dollars wallet? Well, it probably has just credit cards in it today, to be honest, but and that's actually what fiat is. It's just debt. But a Bitcoin wallet is a bearer asset holder tool, I guess if you want to call it that, but it actually isn't holding Bitcoin. This is such a weird thing because what it's really holding is a key. Or in the case of a multi-signature wallet, and that's literally where I'm going to stop because I don't want to go any further, keys. But in this case, a wallet is a key, right? So what the Bitcoin are all, think of like the Bitcoin blockchain as Fort Knox in digital cyberspace, and your Bitcoin are locked up in a box inside of Fort Knox, and your wallet is the key to that box in Fort Knox. And the reason why you need to lock it up really good is because everybody else also can get into Fort Knox. So you need to make sure they just can't get into your box. And this is why we need to secure our keys like it is the Bitcoin, because in all principle, I mean, it basically is. If you have the keys, you have the coins. If you don't have the keys, you don't have the coins. And for the people in the back who have heard of Coinbase, not your keys, not your coins, any exchange. So if they're holding onto your Bitcoin, you aren't. So it's a little different than a bank. Your Bitcoin, like I said, lives on a blockchain. That's what we call it. Digital Fort Knox in cyberspace is just as good in my mind. But it's a chain of blocks. It's a group of transactions. I don't know if we specified it or defined it. So a wallet is a tool that manages your keys, not the coins. So always protect the keys. The coins are protected through the Bitcoin protocol itself. As long as Bitcoin works, your coins are going to be protected. It's the keys that control your Bitcoin. So he who controls the keys controls the Bitcoin. You guys can see I've memorized this presentation. I'm getting ahead. And you control the private key. I've basically already went through this already, gosh. Somebody else, so there's two types of of ways that we do custody. So the traditional aspect, the question is who holds the keys? Well, with a self-custody wallet, you control the keys, and the key is just a number. It's just a really large number that you won't be able to write down, you won't be able to transcribe correctly, and that's what makes it so secure. It's basically a number so big and so difficult to guess again correctly that that's the only time ever that you'll ever get it, until quantum. Come to our workshop next week if you want to learn more about, or next month if you want to learn more about that. But in any case, the opposite of self-custody is custody, and this means somebody else is holding on to your keys. So no matter whether you're holding on to it or somebody else, somebody is holding the key. So there's this common misunderstanding in Bitcoin where people don't want to hold their keys. They don't want to deal with securing it. Okay, well, that doesn't mean it's not having to be dealt with. Somebody has to secure the keys on the blockchain and have that ability to access it. So if it's not you, you're trusting that entirely, 100% with someone else. That's not we'll get into this, but like basically the whole point of Bitcoin was to have peer-to-peer permissionless money, which means that you didn't have to have somebody else hold your keys. So if somebody else is holding your keys, literally go back to the beginning, start all over, read the Bitcoin standard, and learn why Bitcoin was created. Because if you don't hold your own keys, you don't actually hold Bitcoin. You hold a Bitcoin IOU. And there are drawbacks to that. So a custodial relationship, it comes with something called moral hazard. So when someone else holds onto your Bitcoin, they have a financial disincentive they have an incentive to not put your interests first, but their own. This is why, principally, you have to have the keys. So if you learn anything else, not your keys, not your coins, if this is the only thing you remember from this presentation. And keys are the only thing that matter. So a key, though, it can be a little intimidating to manage, and we're going to get into why I guess we won't get into multi-sig tonight, but basically we'll fast forward you that losing a key, who's lost the keys to their car or to their house before? Anyone? This is not a trap. You can actually put your hand up here. Well, imagine if you lost your life savings when that happened forever. That's why people don't want to hold their own keys. I mean, truthfully, like that's a fair. I mean, it's like I get it. There's something called multi-sig, and I guess I'm not going to get into it much, but basically, just like a normal lock on think like a lock on a safe. There could be multiple keyholes, and each of these keys can be distributed, so that even if you lose one key, you don't actually get locked out. You maybe lost that ability to put that key in that keyhole, but you still have some recourse with other keys that you built the lock with, called redundancy. That is what Casa, our company, does. So if you want to learn more about that, come talk after this. But this is not like a beginner thing. But basically, the key itself is 12 words, and like I said, it's actually a really long number called a private key. But just like people lose things, people make typos, people make transcription errors, and so there was a pretty early on invention called a seed phrase, a mnemonic phrase that basically translates this like super long private key that you will definitely make a mistake writing an L instead of a 1 or something, and then you lose all your Bitcoin forever. So people created these mnemonic phrases, which are like translations of that really long string of numbers. There's only a list of 2,048 of them, and you only need to have them in an order of 12. So Bitcoin is that permissionless in that you could literally have 12 words in your head, and that is access to everything. That's not a smart way to do it, because if you get hit over the head or you die or something like that, it's all gone. But that is peer-to-peer permissionless money at its finest. So it's important to write this backup down, right? Because, like I said, you can save it in your head, but we forget things too, just like we lose things. You don't want to screenshot it or have it like on any kind of like Google Drive backup, because if it's online, it'll get leaked. And although this number of 12 words and this order of these words called the seed phrase, which is your private key, is so infinitesimally random that nobody will ever guess it again, if I see it, I can just type those 12 words in and I got all your Bitcoin. So that's also another reason to do multi-sig. We'll get more into single sig wallets because we're not really, maybe I did get into multi-sig here. I don't think so. Okay. So there's two types of single signature wallets, and that's kind of where we're going to stop today. So we talked a little bit about multi-sig already, but single sig wallets is like there's a single keyhole on a lock on the blockchain, and you hold the single key that perfectly fits in that keyhole, and your Bitcoin are locked up inside of that compartment on the blockchain, basically called an address. And there's two types of ways that you can store this key. On an internet-connected device called a hot wallet, or on a non-internet connected device called a cold wallet. Cold means it's not connected to the internet. I don't actually know really why that is the case, but that's what it is. So hot wallets, think like something on your phone, right? If you've ever gotten your phone stolen, or if you've ever lost your phone, again, you don't want your life savings or all of your Bitcoin tied to words that are only on your phone. If you lose their phone, that's a hot wallet. And it also can be phished or otherwise. So what we really want to do is have these special purpose USB devices, I guess I don't have one on me here, but called a hardware key. We call them keys. People call them hardware wallets. That's how you probably will hear them referred to, as hardware wallets. Thank you, Rock. Rocky's got one here. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, man. So they're normally called hardware wallets, and these have any Bitcoin in them? No, because the Bitcoin don't live in the hardware. They're on the blockchain. So these are cold storage keys, cold storage device. Can I pass this around? Are these test devices? So those are, they're offline, but if you would plug them in, it would open, it would have a PIN code, kind of like your phone would have. So, I mean, in a way, it's very similar to your phone because it is just a computer storage memory or, hard drive, and it's got a piece of data stored on it. The difference is that piece of data doesn't connect to the internet. And there are so many vulnerabilities and ways that people can get secrets or get into your iCloud or whatever that it's really not a good idea if you have a large amount of Bitcoin by large I mean more than what your phone is worth. Like to just I wouldn't carry more Bitcoin in a hot wallet than I would carry cash in my pocket. I think that's a good rule of thumb because it has basically the same risks. So use a cold wallet. And they're about, I think that Trezor that's here in the front row, those are like what, $40? Yeah, 50, 60 in fiat inflation, It's worth it. I would say I am so convicted about self-custody that I would say that you should have a wallet before you buy Bitcoin. Because what do you do with it if you buy Bitcoin and you don't have a wallet to send it to? You're just leaving it in somebody else's custody, which means you haven't bought Bitcoin. You've bought an IOU. Oof. So, a couple security tips. We probably already made through most of these. I got to refresh the presentation or look at it before I could go. But yeah, the number one thing to keep track of or to keep in mind is that Bitcoin has cryptography. Is anyone here a cryptographer? No. Okay, so no. If Tyler is our most advanced cryptographer, no one here is a cryptographer. So, and that's the thing though. Like Bitcoin doesn't need, and I think what Joel said earlier is, or what I think Mark said this actually. Like you don't need to, be an expert. You don't need to understand every facet of Bitcoin. You don't need to be a cryptographer to get the benefits of cryptography. Just be familiar with how it works and know that it works. It actually works every single time. It's amazing. It's amazing that it works deterministically every time. So it's not going to be the mistake. It's going to be us. It's going to be the human aspect. And that's Bitcoin is it's not perfect, but it's perfect in that it works exactly how it's supposed to. It's deterministic. It's non-Turing complete, so it's going to run or it's not. It's going to execute the instructions that are given to it flawlessly. However, humans, not so much. We make mistakes. We forget things. We lose things. We tell people the wrong things. And so We swear we did this thing that we didn't do, which was back up the words. And so remember that your biggest, we all have. And so remember that attackers, to keep your Bitcoin safe, they're not going to break Bitcoin. I mean, that's what the quantum thing is about next month, but like that's not actually a big concern yet. They're going to break you. They're going to socially engineer you. They're going to get you to download a fake. You're going to get an email. You're going to get a deep fake from some crazy AI that looks like it's your son or daughter, but it's not. And it's actually like an attacker trying to get you to type in the 12-word seed. So just never ever type your seed phrase in anywhere ever. If you literally just like follow that rule, just don't ever type it in anywhere and use cold storage wallets, and you're probably going to be ahead of 99% of people. And don't shitcoin. But phishing, that's so like if you get an email, there's a link, it looks like it's Coinbase, and you click it, and they're like, oh, Coinbase has this new wallet coming out. No, they don't. Well, they actually do, but you shouldn't probably download it. It's a shitcoin. So scams, no one's ever going to tell you to double your Bitcoin. Like there's the old scams like send me 1 Bitcoin and I'll send you 2 back. If you send the space 1 Bitcoin, we will not send you 2 back. That we've saved, right? And that we've caught, yeah. But it happens. I mean, and there are members of our Colorado Bitcoin community that have fallen for this stuff. Like literally people have impersonated me. And this has happened. People have been parted with their Bitcoin because they thought I was asking them for Bitcoin, which was amazing. I think it feels like it's my fault, yeah. Barry, no. I guess here's my quick little multi-sig plug for large amounts. Because keys, you can lose a key. I mean, honestly, a single key cold storage is really good until you get to like tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin. If you get to that point and you're like, oh shit, I have my life savings on a flash drive in my home that's worth more than my home is, I've heard those exact words, that's where I get it from. You should probably look at multi-sig. Like, if that is true, you need multi-sig because your home is not the most valuable asset in your home. Crazy. Casa is great in effort to be objective. Unchained, they're pretty all right too. Couple privacy practices and just like other tips. So your wallet should generate a new address every single time. This is kind of like trips beginners up because you kind of want to send Bitcoin, be like, okay, it worked, sweet. Now let's send some more to that address. You shouldn't do that. You should actually never reuse addresses for 2 reasons. One is the quantum thing that really we won't get into, but the second is privacy. Bitcoin is not private. It's not a private network. If you send me your address, I can trace literally all your history back if you don't have good on-chain privacy. Yeah, Rock. Yeah, an address is a lock. I'm not going to explain it exactly what it is technically, but it's a locking script on the blockchain. So I think the way to use the old analogy, like I was just referencing, there is a lock on the Bitcoin blockchain called your wallet, and then each little box has the same lock on it, but it's a different box, right? So address 1 has your lock on it. Address 2 has your lock on it. Address 3, and they all have individual contents called a unspent transaction output, UTXO. So basically every time you send Bitcoin to the blockchain, it's going to create a piece of a Bitcoin called a UTXO, and you can't split these apart, or you have to do them in whole pieces of whatever you yeah, Tyler. Mm-hmm.
But an address, every check, I literally dealt with a check today. A check for the first time in 12 years. There's a check number on it, right? Every check has a number, but it still goes back to your bank account.
Right.
Your signature will sign any check with any number that goes to your bank account. But an address, think of like a check number. And what Zach was saying is, if you keep imagine reusing the same check for every time you spend money, every person you pass that check to, it's like they could see every other check you spend.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty accurate technically too to what it is. Yeah, so yep. And always copy paste that. I think I forgot to put that tip in here. So yeah, because that's Neil's slide. Copy paste or scan. QR codes have error correction in them, which was like I learned this pretty recently. So like if you scan a QR code and it processes, it's going to be right because there's actually like error correction in them, and it doesn't even have to get all of the parts of the QR code to get correct, to actually process it. So, but always copy paste. Some address types are case sensitive. Most aren't, but like pay to witness script hash is. So I shouldn't even say that. I'm like, what? Just copy paste. So let's see. I should have like had a summary slide that was like rules of Bitcoin. Never type your seed phrase in. Always copy paste. Use multisig for large amounts. Never reuse addresses. Oh, I guess that is what this slide is. Start small. Use a hot wallet to get comfortable, because if you have less than $50, I did just say you should buy a wallet first. But you should buy like a wallet and your first $50 of Bitcoin at the same time. And get practice, because I've been working in wallets for years and years now, and I can say that no one ever has it all figured out when they sign up for Casa. It's amazing. Like, I think because I've just been doing it for so long, I'm like, yeah, like you just do this, and then I was like, what? But the truth is that like a lot of this is going to be learned by doing. And having someone that either you meet here at the space who can guide you, or being a part of our community and getting more involved, or getting a service like Casa or Unchained that can help you without you having to like hand your keys over to them. There are ways to do this correctly, and believe it or not, like this chasm has been crossed before, and it's going to keep getting crossed. Jesse Myers, who's from OnRamp, or I guess he wasn't on, he's not. Anyway, Jesse has this article, I think he was under the pseudonym Croesus when he wrote this, called Bitcoin in the American West. One of my favorite articles about Bitcoin. We're all in Colorado, so we're all like Westerners. I grew up in Louisiana, like in New Orleans. So like moving out here was like a big change, like a big light. I felt like a pioneer almost. And I'm going out to Colorado. This was a long time ago, but this idea of like moving west. I know many of the guys from the Space Board also like are transplants here in Colorado, and there's a certain like allure of the West. And anyway, this Bitcoin in the American West article is like, there are like phases or like categories of groups of people that came over to the West. And the first was like the trailblazers who got like, crushed by the conditions and slaughtered by the natives. And then there were people who made it and kind of like paved the trails and like sort of like built little bridges along the way. And then made it safer for the next group of people to come in. And actually they had little rest stops and supply refills and places where you could take shelter. And then like, fast forward 50 years and they're freaking Interstate Highway 70, I-70, like cutting through the middle of the Rocky Mountains. And it's like, makes it to where literally anyone can get to the West. And like, that's kind of where we're at in Bitcoin. Where like the first 5 or so years were those people who were literally like cutting through the trees to get to the West. And people like the guys who helped build the space, like we're those ones like laying the little bridges down and helping start co-working spaces like this. But there will be 15-lane highways coming to Bitcoin. And we are so freaking early. It's $120,000 for one Bitcoin, and no one is talking about Bitcoin yet. No one. And you shouldn't either. Maybe that's why they all saw this presentation. Anyway, I already said this like 5 times. Your wallet holds the keys. Use self-custody, or you're not using Bitcoin, you're using someone else's Bitcoin, and you're hoping they don't rug you. Neil's going to get into one of my favorite parts about Bitcoin mining, and I've learned through that painful experience, or Bitcoin is Bitcoin mining, the painful experience of it. But Neil has got a world of experience. in it and can talk to you all about. Oh yes, we have questions. Yes, Barry, what do we got? Yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, unless somebody gives you an unsecured loan, like if someone just gives you dollars, but if you give up, if you don't have the ability to move the Bitcoin from one place to another without asking for permission, you don't have self-custody. Yeah, you've given up the risk. Yeah, and so, I mean, speak for myself here, not a big lending guy. You have the world's hardest money. Just sell the Bitcoin, to be honest. Like, because usually you got to have like 50% LTV anyway. Yeah, you're right. I don't give financial advice, but don't give up twice as much of your Bitcoin if you only need half of it. That's kind of my, like, self-custody is the most important thing. Yes, I don't know if he's got that. Yeah, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. Yeah. No, he. Not only that, he just literally doesn't have it. Yeah. Nice OPSEC, bro. Yeah. Yes.
Let's say I have some stuff in the old wall, but I want to buy something.
Yeah.
Do I have to put it in a hot wallet?
No, you don't. It's a good question. Yeah. So a cold wallet just means that your wallet doesn't have internet connectivity, or actually, even more specifically, wallets have to have internet connectivity to broadcast the transaction. It means the private key material is not on a device that's connected to the internet. So it's a very nuanced. It's a good question. So you always need to broadcast the transaction on the network. And we should probably do a whole thing about nodes and all too eventually, but yeah, you will plug the hardware in, and the hardware are actually special purpose designed to provide a signature without having that private key material leave that offline device. So it's like a check, like a special pen that can sign with a special ink, and the blockchain knows that, okay, it's the owner that has this. Yeah, exactly. Now, and I know you didn't ask this, but it's a good opportunity to say this. So there is a benefit to doing that, though. And not necessarily from a cold wallet to a hot wallet, but just having a hop in between. And the reason is because if you're sending to someone, and don't take this as like the gospel, but like when you send to someone, if that person goes on the blockchain and looks at what address you sent it from, they see how much Bitcoin that address had on it, which is also why you should never reuse addresses. Because if you have all your Bitcoin on one address and you pay one person, that person can see your entire net worth. That's crazy. So what you can do is more of just like a privacy thing, and you can send it to an address and a couple addresses in between. Now, they can go back 3 or 4 transactions and they don't know that's you with certainty. They probably guess that it's you, but there are protocols actually that help you do that. But Bitcoin's not very private. It's just pseudonymous. And so there are techniques that you can do to prevent your name from being associated with that transaction or that address. Privacy, on-chain privacy for sure. Any other questions? All right, so Neil's going to get into Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, so I'll answer the mining question that I saw on the poll site here in just a second. So I tried to keep this real simple, and after hearing what the previous two speakers talked about. I am not scared to give you guys this at all, because you're going to get this no problem at all. Just to touch off of what the wallet thing was, one big piece of advice I like to give Bitcoin miners is you never give out your Bitcoin mining wallet address, because that is a solid address that's going to get paid out to a lot. As soon as somebody figures out that address, you'd be surprised what happens. There's a company called Arkham Intelligence. I think there's a couple other companies as well. They track these wallet addresses and what they do to the Bitcoin miners. And just to introduce myself a little bit, I work for Blockmetrics. I'm director of operations. I'm previously director of mining operations for Compass Mining and Foundry Digital as well. Foundry is one of the largest Bitcoin mining pools in the world. And one of the things we always hated was whenever somebody gave out their mining address, because then companies like Arkham Intelligence, they could take those mining addresses and they can tell everything about that company, where the Bitcoin goes, where it comes from, who you're mining with, who you're paying your bills to, believe it or not. Like, once they have that address, they can track everything. Recently, there was something with, I think it was the government of Bhutan. They did a bunch of Bitcoin mining. Everybody was very curious about how much Bitcoin mining they did. All of a sudden, their Bitcoin mining address ended up on Arkham Intelligence, and we found out that they had about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in reserve. So these are the types of things that, you want to keep private. You don't want people to know things like this. So just touching on what Zach said, it's very important to keep these things private because they're pseudo-anonymous. They're not exactly anonymous. So just to get into the Bitcoin mining side of things, this is a really cool picture. This is a lot of the Bitcoin mining that you're going to see in your home is going to be like one or two of these machines, something in like an immersion system. This is probably about like 3 or 4 megawatts of a 20 megawatt site that came all the way around. This was one of the Compass mining sites in Ontario that we built out. This site, I think we had somewhere around like 3,000 machines in that site. A lot of what you're going to hear about whenever you hear about Bitcoin mining doesn't even apply to mining or the Bitcoin side of it, to be honest. A lot of the things that you hear about is around like the environmental concerns, the noise. The thing I like to focus on is the jobs that it produces. It brings a whole economy to these small towns, and I've gotten to see that a lot over the last 5 years or so. It's really interesting to see us be able to go into these small towns, and there's always this subset of the population, a lot of these techie guys that are into computers and things like that. They don't really have a lot of opportunity, and Bitcoin actually brings that opportunity to these small towns, and it gives these people an outlet for something that they've been looking for that they don't necessarily get in these towns. One that I can think of like right off the bat, it was like I had a guy tell me, he was like, "You're going to pay me to do something that I would do on my own time? Like, this is like my hobby, man." And I was like, "Yeah, well, what's the alternative in this town?" He said, "The meat packing plant." So like, that's why I get so excited about Bitcoin mining, because there's a whole aspect of it where it actually hits the real world. And that's a little bit about what Bitcoin mining is about. But tonight I'm going to try to give you a few things that explain like where Bitcoin mining came from and like why we do what we do. I'm going to try not to get too deep into the technical aspect, but please come find me afterwards if you want to talk more about that stuff. So the definition of Bitcoin mining is it's the process of adding transactions to the blockchain, which is what's been talked about a little bit tonight. So the mining rig side, the mining rig is a metaphor for a computer server that's actually performing computations, right? So we have SHA-256, you might hear that term a lot. That's the encryption side of what we're doing. So whenever a mining rig is actually mining, it's actually sending that encryption, that SHA-256 hash, it's sending that to a server. And if it breaks that hash open, then it's going to get the opportunity to confirm the blockchain, the block that's actually in there, right? So that's the part that is the technical end, and that's about as technical as I'm going to get. Whenever we talk about blockchain, everybody's balanced a checkbook at some point in their life. It's funny because I totally misjudge our audience. You guys totally understand. Like I've talked to a few people already tonight. So before we had computers to do all the math for us at home, we had to balance our checkbook, right? So whenever we would write a check, we would go and write a check, and we would have to remember, well, what's the balance in there? And sometimes you write a few checks before you really thought about like what that balance was, right? So every once in a while at the end of the week, you go, I need to balance that checkbook. So let me take all my transactions, and we have credits and debits. If you did any deposits during the week, then you had some credits, but most of those were going to be debits, and we want to keep track of them on our ledger and our checkbook. If you didn't keep track of them on your ledger, then you didn't balance your checkbook, and there was a pretty good chance that you were going to overdraft the bank, right? So this is very, very simple whenever it comes down to it. Everybody kind of understands the idea of balancing the checkbook, making sure you have enough money in the bank so you don't overdraft the bank and get hit with the fees. That's what Bitcoin mining is about, right? In its simplest form, all we are doing whenever we Bitcoin mine is we're balancing the blockchain. We're balancing that ledger of all those public transactions that are coming down, right? So whenever we do that, whenever you send and receive Bitcoin, there's a small transaction fee. That transaction fee is what those Bitcoin miners are going to get paid, plus the incentive, which is that block reward, right? So not to dwell on this too much. So we're going to get into like the Byzantine generals problem. And that's a mouthful, and it sounds like a scary term, but it's actually a very simple thing whenever it comes down to it, right? The Byzantine generals problem illustrates that there's a commander and you have generals, right? All of those generals, for you to succeed, all those generals have to agree. It's an attack or a retreat. So who's going to be the loyal person? Who's going to be the traitor? You don't know that piece of it, right? So this is a game theory that happens. This is something that's been around for hundreds of years. Like everybody has thought about this ever since the Crusades, right? So who's loyal, who's not? This was a problem that we had for a long time. Whenever you really get into it, there are these games that are out there now. Some of you may have seen things like Among Us, Civilization. These are all games that are based on the same theory of the Byzantine generals problem, right? So whenever you have the generals, we have 12 generals. All of them have to agree, but the problem is they can only send direct messages to each other, right? Whenever they send those direct messages, they don't know if the other general that they're talking to has been corrupted or not, right? Whenever we apply this game theory to the real world, what ends up happening is we end up realizing that no matter if it's a company or if it's a person, there's this incentive that they need to have to be honest and trustworthy. And what Satoshi Nakamoto realized coming out of the 2008 financial crisis is we can't trust people. You know, people work for these companies. And whether or not you're an honest person or not, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes you're just trying to make the books look like what they're supposed to look like because that's what your job is, right? And that's what happened in the financial crisis. I'm not going to get too deep off into that kind of stuff, but what ended up happening was we realized that we need an incentive mechanism, right? That incentive mechanism can be fulfilled if it's hard-coded, and that's what Satoshi did for all of us, right? So Satoshi said, you know what? We need to have consensus, and that's the problem with the banks. The problem was that the consensus was that we need sales and we need numbers over what's good for the people. So he said, you know what? This is the last time we need to deal with this. We have servers, we have computers, we have the internet. And this is what's going to bring us a trustless, zero trust system, right? That's actually like a big Bing word now. It wasn't so much whenever Bitcoin was invented, right? But like zero trust is a big thing right now. Like if you work for any like large scale companies, auditors, pubcos, things like that, they're all talking about zero trust right now because it makes their life so much easier whenever you have to get audited for compliance, right? So what Satoshi ended up doing, he came up with what was called the Satoshi, the Nakamoto consensus. the Nakamoto consensus offered an incentive for you to play by the rules, right? So what that says is, if you play by my rules, you're going to get this reward incentive. Currently, that reward incentive was 50 Bitcoin. Back in my day, it was 50 Bitcoin, right? Well, 50 Bitcoin back then didn't really seem like much because there was nowhere to cash it in. There's like no tangibility. Like, where do I like get money for the Bitcoin, right? Like, that's what everybody was asking. Well, the guys that played by the rules, they understood that, like, I'm going to get this 50 Bitcoin, and as long as I don't attack the network, then I'm going to be able to reward off of this forever, right? So as that network grew, that makes that network even stronger and stronger and stronger. So this is where the Bitcoin miners come in. We're actually protecting that network for that incentive mechanism, right? So all of these generals are trying to command their troops, and they're not sure if the other generals are playing by the rules or not. Well, now all of the generals are incentivized by the Nakamoto consensus, which is what we call proof of work today, right? So the proof of work mechanism is what pays out that incentive, right? You don't have that in the banks. Before the financial crisis, the incentive was I keep my job, right? Like, that's what the incentive was. The numbers got to look good, so I keep my job. Well, now the incentive is the proof of work mechanism. We're going to confirm that blockchain, and you're going to give us the opportunity to confirm that blockchain, and in return, you're going to give us that incentive mechanism back, right? So that being said, what is Bitcoin mining? It literally is the opportunity to confirm the public ledger of new transactions and add those transactions to the blockchain. So the blockchain is in order, and if you can see my picture up here, you can see that the blockchain is actually numbered. So each block is a number in that block. And I believe it's every 210,000 blocks, we're going to have what's called a halving, right? And that's what Joel touched on a little bit, right? That halving is that incentive mechanism. And if you saw Joel's chart earlier, that incentive mechanism doesn't run out till 21 something, I can't remember, 2140, right? So, and this is, all of this is math. Keep in mind, all of this is math. Those numbers can move over time. There's no telling what kind of crazy quantum and new technology is going to come out there that may change that number. But as of right now, that's a long way out. So the idea behind all of this is by the time that we run out of that incentive, that 2140 incentive that's coming in, and I believe this was the question in the poll as well, if my phone will open. What happens after the last Bitcoin has been mined? Will the network continue if there's no miners, no Bitcoin left to mine, right? So the answer is yes, because what's going to happen is by that time, the idea is that the Bitcoin's going to be worth so much that those transaction fees are going to fill the block enough to create the incentive for people to keep on mining. So I tried to start my first Bitcoin-based company in like 2014. Little bit too far ahead of my time, right? Like, the whole idea behind it was we were tired of paying credit card processing fees, right? We felt like we were like really over a barrel with these guys. And the company that I was working with did band merchandise, right? So we were like, well, if this is the new thing, in the next couple of years, everybody's going to be using Bitcoin. So we're just going to go all in on this. And we tried to build out like a merchandising platform that was based on Bitcoin. And we really didn't realize like how early we were into that, right? But it really like kind of woke me up to the fact that like, wow, these credit card processing companies control everything. I mean, you guys wouldn't believe how many businesses have trouble getting started because they can't get simple credit card processing, right? And then on top of that, like you end up paying all of these fees on like just to be in that system. And then what incentive do you have for participating, right? Like there really isn't any. At any minute as a merchant, they could say, hey, this was fraud. We're just going to take that money from you. We don't care if you gave them the product or not, right? And that's where we really, it hit home, So all of that being said, whenever it comes down to it, the consensus is everything. Proof of work is Bitcoin mining, and proof of work is what confirms those transactions in the blockchain and what makes everything that we do immutable to this day, right? I'm going to leave you with one more thing, just because a lot of people ask this question. I figured it'd probably come up. Is Bitcoin mining bad for the environment? This is like the perfect Satoshi quote that I think says it all. Everything's bad for the environment, right? Like anything that produces energy and takes up energy, you could say it's bad for the environment. It's really based on what is the worth of it? What's the worth of pulling the oil out of the ground, right? What's the worth of pulling the gold out of the mines, right? This is the same principle that we have. The only difference here is he says gold mining is a waste, but the waste is far less than the utility of having gold available as a medium of exchange. I think the case will be the same for Bitcoin. The utility of the exchanges make it possible by Bitcoin will far exceed the cost of the electricity used. Therefore, not having Bitcoin would be a net waste, right? Like, I think that says a lot about Bitcoin just in general, right? Yes, you could say that Bitcoin is a waste, but if you look at the worth of Bitcoin and the way that it changes lives and what it does for people, especially in these little bitty towns in Nebraska or small towns in West Texas, like it's giving these guys a career that they wouldn't have had before. You know, so like if you look at the value of Bitcoin beyond just the how much money can I put in my hand, I believe it brings a lot of value to your community. It brings a lot of value to your utility. And not to mention, like, you can still get to think about like turning on your air conditioner at 5 o'clock and not having your utility cut it off for you. Bitcoin's doing that for you literally today. So I'm gonna leave you with that. If anybody has any questions, I'm here all night. Yes, sir.
I do have a question. The hard thing that I have to explain to people is when you're doing your transactions and you're doing corrections on the Bitcoin, is it the Bitcoin network that is you're correcting the transaction on?
Yeah.
You're not like taking bank ledgers.
The-
Is that in the future?
So the Bitcoin blockchain literally lives on every node that we talk about, right? So the Bitcoin blockchain's 500-600 gigabytes, something like that. It's literally a tangible thing whenever you think about like compute space, right? So whenever we talk about the blockchain, it's 500-600 gigabytes of SHA-256D encryption hashes, right? It's literally that. So whenever you talk about like confirming the blockchain, without getting too deep into it, you don't have to you download the whole blockchain, but you can prune off some of it and not use so much hard drive space. Those kind of things are what we're doing to make it possible to run more of those nodes and make it more immutable every day, right? So the blockchain is the blockchain no matter what node that it's on. And the only thing that would ever change that is the consensus. And somebody would have to have more than 51% of every blockchain in the world say that that's not the blockchain anymore for there to be any nefarious things happening.
So it's constantly correct.
100% always. Every one of those nodes, so you could literally have a whole country's internet go out. Iran, like China, they have the Great Firewall. You could literally shut down any country in the world's internet, and there's going to be a node somewhere in the world that's going to pick up that blockchain and say, these are the transactions, and they're still happening, and this is right. And by the way, whenever you come back online, you can download the rest of the blockchain and catch back up with us.
I would not use the word correct.
Yeah, it's not necessarily correct. It's just, it is immutable. Yeah, which means it's infallible. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So I just read an article, what's keeping the adoption stuck in place or not going fast enough is people not understand what
Yeah.
it's the education part.
And
It's going to happen slow.
100%. So so a lot of people spend money, but they don't know what Bretton Woods is, right? Yeah, so that's my point, right? So the Bretton Woods, that's where the IMF was created, the International Monetary Fund. That's where the US dollar became the world dollar, right? So that's kind of what my point is, right? A lot of people don't understand what the Bretton Woods Conference is. Well, this is a technology that kind of replaces that same aspect of the US dollar, right? But instead of having a group of guys locked away in a room deciding what they're going to do for the good of everybody else, this is a general consensus among everybody who's going to say that, hey, you know, we are coming together on a consensus. We believe that this, we have faith in this, and this is immutable, right? And that's really what matters whenever it all comes down to it. So whenever you say, like, people may not understand what Bitcoin is, I have to say, like, I don't think it matters. I think that it's going to take over their life regardless. And people that are sitting in rooms like this are going to be like one step ahead of the curve, you know? Those other people that don't understand it, sometimes they don't necessarily want to understand it because they have other things going on in their life, and that's completely okay, you know? But whenever it comes down to it, like, if you really look into, like, I was talking about credit card processing a little bit earlier, like, a lot of people don't understand, like, how much it takes to get access to a credit card processing network. You know, that, I mean, just having the sales guy is a very intimidating thing coming into your business. You're just like, holy crap, like, yeah, I mean, I've got to buy this machine. You're telling me I got these subscription fees, and on top of that, I got these fees. You know, like, that right there is somebody else deciding that how they're going to give you access to your money, you know? And what Bitcoin is Bitcoin's kind of the antithesis of that. And granted, somebody has to get paid for their time and their work, and that's what those transaction fees are, right? So
The other question
Formulating that, that's also a thought too. One of the reasons why so many people don't trust Bitcoin is for 15 years, almost nonstop, 80% of all the coverage.
yeah, that's very true.
So,
Yeah.
so the programming, it's not like we're starting from zero.
Yeah.
It has been really negative for a very long time.
Well, they almost made it like it was illegal.
100%, 100, and like,
Is there criminals?
so.
Hey, man, for criminals, I'm in, man.
So and to that point, it is, especially the mining side of things, like the third leg on that three-legged stool. The reason why it's the third leg, 100% is because we're wildcatters. You know, it's just like the early days of oil and gas. Whenever it comes down to it, there's not a lot of rules for what we do. We're just trying to make this thing work that's really not supposed to work, but like we're making it work, you know? So yeah, like it has like some bad connotations here and there, but like the things that I like to focus on is like the greater good aspect, you know? Like I get so tired of seeing like Bitcoin mining put in a bad light, and like I see these people online, like on videos and stuff that are having these problems with like noise, and it's making them sick. And I mean, like, I don't know how much weight I put into some of the stuff that they're saying, but like the thing that they can't really get past is like, dude, you already have your house, you already have your land, and yeah, it's right by a Bitcoin farm, but like you're not thinking about like the 30, 40 jobs of these young people that had literally nothing else in this area, you know? And yeah, we'll be good neighbors. We'll do what we can to like bring down the noise, and we're doing that. I mean, Tyler, Dylan, everybody can tell you about immersion, hydro, like these things don't make as much noise. So we're getting there, you know?
before I,
Sure.
this is not supposed to talk about state.
Ha, yeah. So, okay, so stable coins are not from the proof of work era, which is kind of like what we're talking about. I believe proof of stake got mentioned just like temporarily here. Here's what I'll say about the stable coin side of things. Stable coins, however you feel about them, they're based off of a different technology, like whenever it all comes down to it, right? Like that's not the technology that we're talking about. Like proof of work is the technology we're talking about. That stable coins are based off of like different chains. So like you can have EVM chains or like Ethereum virtual machines. So you can have all these different chains, right? So like there's Tether, there's USDC. The reason why Bitcoiners don't really like latch on to that side of things is because you're just kind of handing the control back to somebody else, right? Like, we've created this thing that took the control out of the hands of the governments and the banks, and it gave it back to the people. And the stable coins are kind of the antithesis of that, right? Like, we're literally going to hand all of the US dollars that we've been trying to seek into Bitcoin, we're going to hand that back to the governments and the corporations. I mean, like, everybody's got their own pocketbook to look out for, right? Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, like whenever it comes down to it, like, and I don't want to get too deep off into the like fall of the US dollar, right? But whenever it comes down to it, we all feel the inflation. We all feel what's happening with the US dollar, and we're looking for a safe place to put it, right? Well, I mean, like, we got Bitcoin over here, or we got this thing that those guys that created the US dollar got over here, and we can put it back into that, and like, hey, by the way, we'll give you a yield on that. That might be a little bit more than what inflation is, but like, to be honest with you, we're still going to keep you in your place. I mean, yeah, because it's based off the US dollar, right? Right, yeah, so I mean, like, so without getting like too deep off into like the technicalities and stuff and like trying to like badmouth all the companies that are doing that technology, like, whenever it really comes down to it, it's not trying to be a purist, it's just trying to like let you know, like, as a safe haven asset, like, if this is the asset that you're looking for, Bitcoin's probably going to be a better asset whenever it's all said and done. You're still going to be beholden to all the same stuff that you're trying to escape from the US dollar if you invest in those stable coins. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. You want to hit it real quick? What you got? Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, any currency, but yes. Yeah. Yeah, work for it is a great, yeah, there's a lot of people that made more money off of working for it than anything else, FYI. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, ma'am. You got it. Plus the transaction fees, which aren't nearly as much, but they're there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're trying to figure out profit margin. Mm-hmm. Yes. 100%, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're still confirming transactions on the network. I mean, but it's also divisible. Please.
So this is the best analogy. In my head it might not be the best for you. So I think of mining as Satoshi Nakamoto created digital currency. How do you fairly distribute that to the world? Does he give those 10 million of the 21 million to himself? Does he give to his grandmother? How do you fairly distribute it so anyone can do it? That's what the mining protocol is. It says anyone can download a protocol, and I'll define protocol. Email is a protocol.
Yep.
Microsoft can run Outlook. Google can run email, right? That's the email protocol. Anyone can run the Bitcoin protocol. The miners run the mining operation of that. You contribute energy, work, electricity, just like you work at your job and your dollars. And this is the fair way to distribute it so that no matter whenever you enter the game, you spend energy, work, and if you solve the block, because you process transactions, you added them to the public ledger that everyone agrees on.
And spent money on energy to do so.
Spend money on energy, you did the work, you get the reward. And your question about making it harder for everyone else, as more people play this game, more miners come online.
Yes.
You can think of it like, I do like the analogy in that Brings book, which is like dice rolling,
Yep.
And the more people that join, you can think there's more people guessing numbers, they're gonna solve it quicker, right? So the mining network, what it does is it makes the number harder to guess.
Yeah.
And it's self-regulating in that sense. And so that's what makes it so that every 10 minutes, someone on average wins. And if a bunch of miners shut off, but you have a lot of people playing, it'd be easy to guess that number easier. It actually will roll the difficulty back, it's self-regulating in that way. But the high-level concept is that mining is kind of a fair way to distribute coins and reward people for processing transactions. And so at the year 2140, it doesn't matter that they're all mined, then the 21 million will be in circulation. The miners will continue to chip away just processing transactions, and the people that spend that energy to do that will get the transaction fees.
And all of this literally happens in real time. Like, I do this 24 hours a day to the point where it's kind of crazy, especially in certain markets. So like, I didn't want to get too deep into like pooled mining and like the way the energy markets and stuff work, but like, whenever you talk about making it hard for other people, the answer is yes. Yeah, it's called a difficulty mechanism, and there's a retarget time. So if the block time takes more than 10 minutes, then the difficulty goes up and it makes it harder to mine. If the block time is less than 10 minutes on average after that 2 weeks, then it's going to drop the difficulty and make it easier to mine, right? So these are all things that I constantly have to think about. You know, whenever we get that retarget time in, I watch it religiously, right? So I'm looking at it like we had a 7% down, we had a 7% up, I think we had like a 2% down. So like as I watch that, that's how I dictate how I'm going to mine Bitcoin, depending on the machines that I'm using. So it does make it harder, but then there's a rabbit hole of information whenever it comes to the different types of miners that you're mining with, how you get access to them, what kind of infrastructure that you have, how quickly you can drop the miners, which wholesale power market that you're in. All of these things matter. Are you mining on a co-op, a municipality? Are you dealing with somebody that has an API that can shut you down at the right time so that you can get demand response credits? There are some companies that make more money off of buying and selling the energy than they do off of mining the Bitcoin, right? So like, and that's literally like, I think that's the thing that kind of gets overshadowed whenever we talk about like crypto and Bitcoin mining and environment and stuff like that. Like literally, like I'm not joking. The reason why people in Texas can go home and turn their air conditioner on in the afternoon during the hottest part of the day and not think twice about it is literally every single day. There is megawatts, hundreds of megawatts of Bitcoin miners shutting down so that you don't have to think about how comfortable that you are anymore, right? Like these are the types of things that are affecting your every single day life and you don't even know it's happening. So whenever you ask questions about like how like people don't understand Bitcoin, people don't understand Bitcoin mining, but they sure know that they can go home and turn their air conditioner on and there's nobody trying to cut it off on them, you know? Yeah. Satoshi Nakamoto. Yeah. I mean, technically, he's the richest guy in the world, like, because there are a bunch of wallets that, you know, technically probably could or could not have access to. But, like, that aside, like, you know, it does. But, like, you know, who is he, right? Like, apparently.
Sailor has half as many as him.
Right.
Like, if he's the richest guy in the world, then so be it. Everyone else is also benefiting.
Look, you can be. Like it's 100% okay to be skeptical, and you absolutely should be. 100%, and that's what the whole Bitcoin premise teaches: is don't trust, verify, right? Like 100%. So like you're asking all of the right questions, absolutely. And you know what? There's some unknowns, and I'm not going to stand up here and act like there's not unknowns. There are absolutely unknowns in our business, but we have been in this for long enough and it's progressed long enough that we've reached the immutability point, especially like in mining. So like there's absolutely no possible way anybody can afford to produce enough hash rate to attack the blockchain anymore, right? So and that's a fair statement, but like, you know, as of right now, those Bitcoins that we know that he had access to have not moved. Whenever you hear news stories and stuff about like the Satoshi wallet awakening, 9 times out of 10 is about some weirdo sending $1 million to the Satoshi wallet, right? Like it doesn't make sense a lot of times. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair. You're among fellow skeptics. So whenever it all comes down to it,
One guy got rich so that Venezuela can get away from
yeah, right.
send money to Ukraine. Like,
I mean, my personal opinion is that Satoshi Nakamoto is a very purist believer in what he did, because if he wasn't, like, dude, he would have come out by now. Like, yeah, and that's a very real statement. You know, like I was on a lot of the forums, like on bitcointalk.org, and I was on IRC like way in the early days. I watched a lot of the cypherpunk chats. I was still around when like, Satoshi was still posting on Bitcoin Talk, and this was just some guy that nobody believed. You know what I mean? Like legitimately, everybody was skeptical of like what he was saying, and a lot of it got attributed to him, but like what gets lost in like this conversation is there's a lot of other people like Jameson Lott from Casa, Adam Back from Blockstream. Like these guys were there. They helped develop the core code of Bitcoin, and they were the ones that also believed in the same things that Satoshi believed in and made that immutable. Hal Finney, I mean, it's not, what I'm saying is it's not just Satoshi. There's a whole group of people that are 100% just as responsible as Satoshi is for the core code, and they are as big of a believers that, yeah, a lot more now. Like, it's incredible. Hunter, if you get a chance to come to BitDevs and see Hunter, like, some of the stuff he says is way over my head, but I love it, like 100%. But that side of it, I think that it is a lot more advanced than these type of classes, but that side of it, if you have the wherewithal to at least sit through a lot of things that you don't understand and get to like some of the little key points, you'll see how the Bitcoin core devs feel about what they're doing and how important it is to them. And keep in mind, like the Bitcoin organization itself is also a nonprofit. Like whenever it comes down to it, like they're not there to profit from it. Whenever I worked for Compass, I think we donated, I want to say it was like $70,000 or $80,000 or something to the Bitcoin core initiative, and that paid for one developer for his whole salary for a year, right? And they were super excited about that, you know? So like we try to support those organizations, and those are the real gatekeepers. Like we'll talk a lot about Satoshi because he was the one that did the original writing and stuff, but there's a lot of people behind him that took up that cross, you know? Yeah, that's the difference between.
So, there's a couple questions here on here. Asking questions is the best way to learn about Bitcoin. So there are 3 specifically on this polling app. The first one is Crocs. Zach, question for Zach, Crocs. There's a concept in Bitcoin called low time preference. This means that you have a long time horizon for achieving things. And for me, these Crocs, as you can tell, they have a low time preference. They have seen their better days. I've actually hiked a 14er in these Crocs. I have stepped on a nail. There's a hole in the bottom of them. There's no more tread. But they were $50, and I bought these Crocs 6 years ago. You know how many Bitcoin that was? They're yeah, the Zach Crocs Fund. 13. They are the world's best and most versatile shoe. This is not a Crocs pitch, but it is a great shoe. You can wear them in all occasions, even presentations. I won't wear them on my wedding day, though. What happens after the last Bitcoin has been mined? Neil, did you cover that? Okay. What is stopping another cryptocurrency from taking over? I think Neil kind of answered this, but what's so interesting about Bitcoin is that it was created basically like, what's the word? Altruistically. So who gets rich from Bitcoin? Let me get on stage to say this. Everyone, all of us. Satoshi gave humanity a gift. Let's not spit in their face. And the truth is that Satoshi could, if they were a person, if they are alive, they could spend 1 million Bitcoin, which would make them the richest person on earth. But there are a couple things that would happen. And one of the cool things about Bitcoin is the game theory that protects it and keeps it going. So if Satoshi were to do that, it would destroy the value of Bitcoin. So they're no longer the richest person on earth. So that's the first thing you have to think through. The second is that what person on earth, and I don't have proof on this, right? But like, we can just think like, what person on earth could be the richest person on earth and not cash in on it? Because time is more valuable than money. That's one thing I will say again and again. So they're literally like holding on to this status as the richest person on earth. For what? Like they can't cash in on it because if they did, they would lose that. It would lose all of its value. Third thing is that Satoshi's coins are going to get moved eventually. And so they will be redistributed to the population. And so this is because of the type of address format that Satoshi used. It's called pay to public key. Very quickly on, they use pay to public key hash, which is far more secure against quantum. But basically, when quantum computers come out, all Satoshi's coins are getting stolen. And so this is great because it's going to redistribute the wealth into the community and 1 million Bitcoin won't be locked up. Come to the quantum talk next month, Jameson Lopp suggests we freeze those coins actually instead of let a quantum computer destroy them or steal them. And we talked through the game theory economics of why that'll be the case. But anyway, so the long answer to the question of why can't another cryptocurrency basically displace? Well, many have tried. The thing that makes Bitcoin so unique is that there's no one at the top controlling it. So that is where the value comes from because no one controls it, no one has a large majority of it, and no one ever can at this point. So in the beginning, Satoshi could have essentially commandeered the network, could have dumped his coins on the market, could have, but you actually see quite the opposite. You actually saw them, there's something called the Patoshi pattern, and we're getting way deep here from a beginner, but basically, there's behavior on the blockchain that shows that Satoshi actually scaled back mining and that they mined less than they could have. And this was because they didn't want to have all the coins in their holdings. So actually, all of the behavior that we do see from Satoshi is that they disappeared. They don't have any control over the network objectively today. They have no control over the code. All they have control over is hypothetically the million Bitcoin that they might have, and that's a lot of Bitcoin. Which, again, game theory says that they probably won't spend it because it would really impact the security assumptions of the network. So what we have is this kind of immaculate conception of creation, and there cannot be a second one. And that's because now that there is a one, there's no need for another. And now that there is one with this history that is altruistic, every single one would have to be more altruistic. But it would also be, and I forget there was an article that said exactly what this is, but it has, the path of least resistance was created, and now everything is following it. So there's only one first time that somebody invents the airplane, or one first time that somebody invents a true money that can't be broken down through trust, or that can be spent without trust. That's not broken down through lack of trust. So there are no coins that can replace Bitcoin that exist today with the current assumptions that we have about it. Why are stable coins, to come all the way full circle, why are stable coins off limits in this place? They're not. Because dollars, I mean, we accept donations in dollars. Like we're not, we don't have our head in the sand, but stable coins are dollars. So that's the answer. I mean, it's just digital dollars with spending restrictions. So it's privately held digital dollars. They're inflationary is the biggest point. So, yep, thank you all for coming. All right, well, that was it. So thank you guys. Yeah.
Bitcoin, I've been reading here, they're lending institutions and so forth are coming out with some products or something. ETF or something like that. They already did. Well, what is the benefit of that? Is that gonna, improve people buying it,
Yeah, so
legitimizing it more?
the benefit of the ETF is that you don't have to manage the private keys. You don't have to manage the Bitcoin at all because you don't actually own it. You don't own Bitcoin. You own a fund that owns Bitcoin. And so there are parts of it like, look, I'm a Bitcoiner. I came from finance world. I used to sell ETFs, so I understand, but like it's not peer-to-peer, it's not permissionless, and it's not money. It's a security held in the custody of somebody else, and they hold the private keys. They hold all those private keys. So, imagine, and I hope this never happens but like imagine Coinbase has a breach and they lose the Bitcoin that's held in the Bitcoin ETF. Imagine, first off, you have no recourse. You didn't make any mistake, Coinbase did. Second, no one can pay them back or bail them out. There's no possible way to bail out 1 million Bitcoin, because they're trying to buy that many to replace it would push the price up to infinity. Third, there's a percentage rate expense fee on it, and that's pretty bad because Bitcoin's going to go up forever by design in fiat or in dollar terms. So, something to remember is that it's not necessarily that Bitcoin value is going up because value is a numerator and a denominator. So the denominator is the dollar. And that's what's actually making Bitcoin go up. And that's what's actually making this building worth more dollars. And that's what actually makes pizza more expensive, right? It's the same concept. And so, a percentage fee every year is going to cost a lot more in your actual holdings value because they charge a 0.25% a year. So if Bitcoin goes to 1 million from 100,000, your annual fee just went up 10x too, which is great for them, not so great for you. Yeah, and that's and I'm a bit on the deep end at this point, but like the whole financial system is designed for them. The whole reason Bitcoin was created is because the government control over money is wrong, and it is built for their benefit, not for the individuals who participate on the buying end of these products. And Bitcoin finally gives us an optionality to say, I have the ability to hold my own money. I don't need a financial advisor to charge me an annual fee. I don't need a bank to charge me an annual fee. I can literally just hold my money and go live my life. And and she's saying it's bedtime. Any other questions?
Just know that any of us that are here are open to questions that anybody has. We're here pretty much Monday through Friday, 8 to 5-ish. If there's anything that doesn't get answered tonight, we're here. Like I was saying earlier, we've got continuing education classes as well. So next month we'll have a continuation course, which is kind of like an intermediate course. So we're going to get 2 credits per week to do that. And then our expert course, like Zach Deal,
Yeah, first Thursday of every month. First Thursday. Unless we change it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have money locked in I can't give financial advice, but like, this isn't advice. If you have money locked up in a 401k, you're limited in what you can invest that in. If you have money in an IRA, you may, depending on what brokerage, you're limited in what you can invest it in unless you withdraw it out of the IRA, which has tax consequences, all this stuff. And Neil draws an important point, like especially for people who have been contributing to retirement accounts before the word Bitcoin existed. There's not much you can do about that. The money's in there, yeah. I mean, if the best thing you can, if most of the wealth that you can put in Bitcoin can only be done through the ETF, I would say that is not the worst way to get exposure, because it's better than no exposure. But you have to understand that you don't hold Bitcoin. And there are things like hard forks that can happen, which like can completely destroy the value of the ETF to zero, but keep Bitcoin going unfazed. And so there are black swan tail risks that are present in the ETF that also could maybe present, some of them in your own self-custody, but at least it's in your control. What's an uncompromising trade, in my opinion, is when you have a risk that is completely a tail risk that's you can't mitigate and that you can't control or insure against. And unfortunately, like the Bitcoin ETFs have this existential risk with not your keys, not your coins. There's also capital controls and things that, but you know.
Here we go, Rocky.
There we go. What's the thing? If there's something, I got whatever to sell you. I forget the saying, but thank you guys. Thank you for coming.